Critical race theory is a liberal and academic attempt at denial, an attempt to absolve liberals of their racist actions. So critical race theory is the new tool that the left is using to batter the right over the head. Because the left is hell-bent on proving that the right is racist. And any tool they can find or concoct or invent to prove that point to its followers, it will do so. Right, I watched a video put up by Roland Martin, who's a Democrat heavyweight. He's a strong supporter of the Democrat Party. He used to be a TV personality, now he has a YouTube channel. He was having a debate with an African-American woman who's a supporter of the Republican Party. In this debate, Roland Martin presented a definition, and I'm going to use this definition, dissect this definition, because it came from a heavyweight Democrat. And the Democrats are the ones who are arguing that critical race theory is real. Not a theory, it's a fact. The definition reads as such, and I quote, "Critical race theory is an academic concept that is more than 40 years old. The core idea is that racism is a social construct and that it is not merely the product of individual bias or prejudice, but also something embedded in the legal systems and policies." We're going to scrutinize this definition and see if it stands up to our scrutiny. So let's start with the statement that critical race theory is an academic concept. I've been onto Wikipedia to check out who are the leading voices in the critical race theory agenda, and yes, it is an academic concept. There are 8 main voices, and I went and looked in Google Images to find out who they were. 2 of the 8 main voices are black men. 3 of the 8 main voices are white people. So what we have here is an agenda, a critical race theory agenda that's being pushed by more white people than black men. That's an issue for me. That should be an issue for you, but I don't know if it is. But it's an issue for me. And I'm going to tell you why it's an issue for me. Upper middle class liberal academics wouldn't dare telling Jewish people, if they're non-Jews that is, wouldn't dare telling Jewish people that what the definition of anti-Semitism is. They wouldn't dare do it. Nor would they dare tell Muslim people what Islamophobia is. But for some reason, and I've been studying history, decade upon decade, upon decade upon decade, upper middle class, liberal, academic white people have been trying to dictate to the black community what racism is. We're tired of it. You're detached from us. You don't live in our shoes. You can't tell us what racism is. If the Labour Party in the UK can't tell the Jewish community what anti-Semitism is, then you can't tell us what racism is. So let's tackle this second point made in the definition for critical race theory. And the second point is, the core idea is that racism is a social construct. Let me start off by saying that racism is not a social construct. Neither is race. Now I know where that view is coming from. In the 1850s, racist, I put my fingers over my head, racist scientists tried to use science to prove that blacks were genetically inferior and whites were genetically superior. The fact of the matter is, we are genetically different. Look at the bears. If you took a polar bear and put it in the zoo and it bred with a polar bear, its cubs would be polar bears. They'd be white too. Why? Because colour is genetic. Colour is genetic. It is not a social construct. Race, therefore, is genetic. It is not a social construct. Now you might say, well, we don't need to be racist. Behavioural science says otherwise. Behavioural science says there are 5 discriminators that people employ when they are building an affinity with someone, when they've met someone or when they want to meet someone. And the 5 discriminators are race, sex, age, stature, grooming and dress and so forth. So we gravitate on an unconscious from an unconscious motivator, we gravitate towards people who are of the same race as us, the same sex as us, around the same age, etc., in that order. So, putting race and gender and age first, ageism, sexism, racism, is natural. I'm not saying it's good for a modern society, but I'm saying it's natural. So on that point, and this is a second point, the critical race theory definition falls down. Racism, nor race, is a social construct. It's natural and genetic. This definition for critical race theory that's been put forward by Roland Martin is not standing up too well to scrutiny. It's 2-0 at the moment. It's been debunked twice. So let's move on to the third and final point it makes, and that is, it claims that racism is embedded in legal systems and policies. So it's putting a strong emphasis on the institution and the policies, and kind of taking the spotlight off of the person and the individual. So let's explore that. Let's explore if racism is embedded in the legal systems and policies. In the UK, British Caribbean boys are 3 times more likely to be excluded from school by schools. That's if we're to believe the definition of critical race theory given to us by Roland Martin. The British Caribbean boys are excluded by the school, the building, not the head teacher or the principal. In the UK, black men in general are 7 times more likely to be stopped and searched by the police. Okay, so if it's the policies and the systems that's excluding the boys and stopping and searching the men, if we removed all the white police and all the white teachers and replaced them with black police officers and black teachers, British Caribbean boys will still be 3 times more likely to be excluded from school, and black men would still be 7 times more likely to be stopped and searched. Because it's the institution. It wouldn't matter who's implementing the institution's policies, because the institution's policies, according to critical race theory, are embedded with racism. Now, we both know if all the police officers were black, then black men would not be 7 times more likely to be stopped and searched. And if all the teachers were black, we both know that British Caribbean boys wouldn't be 3 times more likely to be excluded from school. Which basically means one thing. It's not the institution that's excluding the boys or stopping and searching the men. It's the individual. It's not the policy, it's the person. Is it the sentencing guideline that says black people must get longer sentences? Or is it the judge? If it's the guidelines, where in the guidelines does it say a judge must give black people longer sentences? If it's the Police and Criminal Evidence Act that says black people should be stopped and searched more than white people, where in the Police and Criminal Evidence Act of 1984 does it say that? Let's find it. And once we found it, let's take that law to court, have a black judge, a black jury, a black prosecutor, and find it guilty of race discrimination. I hope I'm making myself clear. That's the policy, right? The policies become law. Critical race theory says racism is embedded in legal systems and policies. I say no. I say racists are embedded in those institutions. I say racists write those policies and laws, and racists implement those policies and laws. Effectively, what we have is a case of garbage in, or racist garbage in, racist garbage out. And on this point, critical race theory falls on its face one more time. In conclusion, so I've dissected the definition of critical race theory given by Roland Martin, the Democrat heavyweight, and the evidence shows that critical race theory is just that, a theory, and an outdated one at that. 1. It was devised by academics detached from the black community, some of who were white. 2. It says racism is a social construct. Behavioral science and evolutionary science now says otherwise. 3. It says racism is embedded in the legal systems and policies. Well, your common sense said it's racists who are embedded in the legal systems, and it's racists who wrote the policies, and it's racists who implement the policies. So effectively, racism does exist. We all know that racism exists. I've said so in this video. And racism does seem to come from these institutions, or it appears to be coming from the institutions. But what is clear is that it is the liberals that run the black community. That means they run the institutions that control the black community. It's the liberals that write the policies for the black community. And it's the liberals that staff the institutions in the black community. So it has to be the liberals who are responsible for the racism in the black community. Essentially, critical race theory is a liberal and academic attempt at denial, an attempt to absolve liberals of their racist actions and the consequences of their racist actions. So do you agree or disagree with the black think tank breakdown of the definition for critical race theory, which was provided by Roland Martin? If you agree, leave a comment. If you don't agree, leave a comment. Please click like as well. Subscribe if you can or if you want to. And share this video with a friend. In fact, no, forget that. Share it with an enemy. This is Black Think Tank.